Hello, how are you? I hope you are well and winning on this wonderful Wednesday. Welcome to ULEAD podcast. My name is Tina Madeline and I am your host. I'm so excited to have you today. We are continuing with the theme of influence and trust. I literally feel like this podcast should be called the Trust Podcast because we are exploring the various ways in which trust is such a key factor when it comes to leadership. So last episode, we talked about influence. We talked about how leadership is influence, and that influence is based on trust. Your team must trust you in order to allow themselves to be influenced by you. So this week, we're talking about how you can become a trusted leader, how you can get your team to trust you as their leader. And this is very important. First of all, we already established this because in order to gain influence, you must be a trustworthy individual, a trustworthy leader. And the reason why I keep on bringing this up is because why must you be the one to make sure that there's trust within the leader team member relationship? And that is because as the leader, you ultimately bear the burden of responsibility on team dynamics, on casting vision, executing the vision, on results, on being able to have good outputs and good outcomes, and everything relies on you as the leader. Basically, you have that burden of responsibility. Even for your team, you must take responsibility of them. So how does this come to pass? So on this episode, I just want to list a few things. These are not all the things that you can do in order to be a trusted leader, but they're just some of the things that I thought were really important and that we can get into on this episode. And so we're going to look at the things that you should do in order to build trust with your team. At the same time, as we are listing the things that you should do, you also come to realize the enemies of building trust. All right, so the first thing that you need to do is you need to ask your team to have faith in you and your ideas. In the very first episode, we talked about the difference between faith and trust. And that is, with faith, you are looking at, the Bible says that faith is the evidence of things not seen. But then trust is based on a track record, right? So you can ask a person to have faith in you before they even have trust in you. You're just like, you know what? You don't see the vision right now. You don't see how my ideas are going to come to pass. You don't see how they're going to be so effective. But I'm just asking you to have faith in the vision, have faith in this idea, have faith in this plan. Let's just run with it. And when it is successful, you will trust that as a leader, I know what I am doing and I have the best plans for my team and for the organization at heart. So you need to ask your team to have faith in you and your ideas, and then work to gain their trust based on their given faith in your vision. So for example, the book of Hebrews is one of my favorite books. It's the first book that I ever really delved into to dig out that gold that you can find all through the Bible. And one thing that I learned when I was reading the book of Hebrews is what God said about the Israelites as they were traveling from Egypt to the promised land. And that is, God said that the Israelites failed to enter the promised land because of their lack of trust in Him. He didn't say because of their sin in the book of Hebrews. He didn't say because of their sin. He didn't say because of anything else. He says because of their trust, because of their lack of trust in Him. And why is that? All through the Israelites' journey from Egypt, we see God coming through provision, manna. He gives them light and guides them, a pillar of fire by day and pillar of fire by night and the cloud by day. And we see Him providing, we see Him coming through, we see Him performing miracles. And even though He had a proven track record, the Israelites still didn't trust Him. And it says that because of their lack of trust, they failed to enter God's rest. And so we see the importance of having trust in whatever relationship. And so the 6 things that I talked about that we're going to be going into that you should do. Number 1, as a leader, you need to be honest. You need to be honest with your team. Tell them where you're at. Tell them what is going on. And if you've ever been in a relationship, once a lie has been told, even in a romantic relationship, that trust is broken. And now you have to work extra hard to build up that trust again. So the relational the relationship rather between the leader and the team is like any other relationship. It must be built on trust. And whenever there are lies and dishonesty, trust is broken. So the number one, be honest. Number two, do not procrastinate. And this is a really hard one. I know for me it is, do not procrastinate. Why? Because when you are working with a team, you tell them something, this is going to happen. I am going to do this as your leader by this time. And when you procrastinate, you're not doing that. And that means that bit by bit, your team is learning not to trust whatever you say. And when it comes to leadership, your word has to be your bond when it comes to leadership. When you say you're going to do something, you need to do it, because whenever you don't, that trust is broken. Number three, communicate. Communicate, communicate, communicate. This is, I can never overemphasize the importance of communication. When there's open lines of communication with you and your team, and you are in sync with your team, that fosters an atmosphere of trust. People know they can come to you with information because they know that you're also open with information. So always communicate, communicate, communicate. I think we'll do a whole other episode where we just talk about communication and how it's important in leadership. And then number four, take responsibility. Have accountability. I found this quote and it says, accountability comes from the presence of trust and the absence of fear. So you need to be accountable and you need to hold others accountable. Within your team, there needs to be a certain understanding with everyone that you are accountable for your work. But you as the leader, you know at the end of the day, you are accountable for your team. So you need to hold your team accountable and hold yourself accountable, because you are also being held accountable, whether you have a superior or, you know what, God is going to hold you accountable for your actions and for everything that is given to be under your stewardship. So take responsibility and have accountability. And then number five, competency. Okay. I don't know if if it's just me, but have you ever worked with someone who's not competent? And I know this is something that is really prevalent, especially in Zimbabwe. You know how it is, like with graduates. Sometimes you don't get the full level of training in university, and then you go to your job and you have no idea what you're doing, and your bosses just think you're incompetent, and they're asking you, did you even go to college? Did you even study accounting? You look like you don't know what you're doing. Why? You need to be competent as a leader. Be competent in your field. Show your team that you know what you are doing. Don't expect of your team what you do not expect of yourself. You need to be competent. You need to show your team that you're competent. The Bible says, study to show yourself approved. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in ministry. It's the same thing wherever. Just study yourself. Study to show yourself approved and be competent as a leader. And then number six, the final one, kind of links in with communication, and that is give feedback. When you give feedback, I think this is a combination of communication and accountability. You must be able to give feedback, good or bad feedback, to your team, because at the end of the day, feedback is for growth. It's not for tearing down, it's for growth. When you give honest feedback, timely feedback, don't wait too long to give feedback or to bring something up when it's no longer relevant. Bring it in a timely manner, give feedback in a timely manner, and this will foster a relationship of trust between you and your team. And so what did we talk about today? We talked about how it's important to be a trusted leader. Your team needs to trust you so that you can influence them effectively to work, basically. So what are the 6 things? Be honest, do not procrastinate, communicate, take responsibility, show competency, and give feedback. This is today's episode, and I just want to say this one quote that is going to be kind of a segue into the next episode, which is, the team must trust the leader, but the leader must also trust their team. So in the next episode, we're going to be talking about trusting your team. I know it might be a hard one to be able to relinquish control and trust your team, but that's what we're going to be talking about in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been ULEAD Podcast. My name is Tina Madeline. Go out and be the leader that you were called to be.